Well, we've been waiting for this day. We knew it was coming, and it has finally come. Kaizer Chiefs have officially announced that they have parted ways with Nabi. And they've also made an announcement regarding who's taking over, and it's the two coaches who were Nabi's assistants. And this is leaving a lot of people with a lot of opinions. And I have a lot of opinions about this. What are they? Well, let's talk about it. Hello and welcome to Khosi Nation Fan TV. I am Pelo, I am your host, and this is where fans meet and talk about Kaizer Chiefs. Khosi Football Club. So this is a story that started 3 weeks ago. It started 3 weeks ago, but if we're being honest, it did not start 3 weeks ago. It actually started more like 5 months ago because in May, Chiefs were chasing. They won the Nedbank Cup on the 10th, and then on the 11th of May, then there was a story that Kaizer Chiefs were going to part ways with Nabi, which a lot of people did not believe because they're like, you journalists are crazy. How come you think a team would fire a coach who just won them a cup that they had not won, they had not won any cup in 10 years. And Nabi came in and he won them that. And people just ridiculed it. And then since that story was up in the air, while Abo Jessica, no Kaizer Mtaung Jr. were going around these, press tours of sorts, talking about this thing, they kept on saying, we will review the coach, obviously. We still need to do reviews. We need to finish in the top 8. And that's very important, the top 8 to Kaizer Chiefs management. And they kept on bringing it up. We'll still have an end of season review. We'll do this, we'll do that. On the other hand, Nabi was busy saying, we need better quality. I need better players. He said it, right? And he said if he doesn't get what he wants, the quality that he wants, he is more than willing to leave. Now, there are two things in that sentence. The first one is the irony of the fact that most people, when Khalil and Kaze started coaching Chiefs, started talking about the quality of players that Kaizer Chiefs have. In fact, even before Nabi. So Nabi inherited most of the players from Atazwane and Tsegi and Johnson. And people were talking a lot about Nabi needs quality. Nabi comes in, he wins a cup with those cows, right? And yet you still have people who are now saying they've changed their tune altogether. Oh, Nabi was horrible. We failed to finish top 8 with the team. But that's the same team that had been around for 3-4 years at Chiefs. But at the same time, Nabi is saying he would leave unless he gets what he wants. He then says that he talked to the big man, the chairman himself, Kaizer Mtaung Senior, who made him promises. Well, he said, I spoke to them, and the chairman, which made me think that, okay, that might have changed his mindset, and that might have changed the whole destination of whether Nabi was going to be fired or not. Because I said it even after that, when he said, I spoke to the chairman, that it implied that this went above Abu Jessica, this went above Abu Pobi, this went above Abu Kaizer Mtaung Jr., because the chairman himself likely gave assurances to Nabi. If he didn't give assurances to Nabi, he's the one who might have said, you are not going anywhere. But the kids were saying he's going. Or maybe some kids, not all of them. Just a side note. So they end up getting to a point whereby Nabi obviously still wants some players, notably Fiston Maele, notably Faisal Salum. 2 players who were going to be very key in Kaizer Chiefs right now. Because right now Kaizer Chiefs does not have someone who's been banging in goals like Fiston Maele had. Right? And we know he can score. We saw him score against Pirates, for those of you who did not know and follow him before he went to Pyramids, right? Or just you didn't even need to follow him. You just needed to look at his past teams that he played for Yanga and what he was doing there, right? A prolific goal scorer. Nabi wanted a striker like that. They got him Morris. With all due respect to Morris, he's nowhere near as talented as, or as quick, or as prolific in front of goals as Mael. Yet that's who Nabi got instead of Mael. Now, if you are Nabi and you wanted a certain player and they get you another player, I don't think it's unreasonable for you to complain about that, because what you want, right? And then the sun just comes out. What you want, and you're not going to now change your ways and say, oh no, I am fine, I'll just work with what I have. Because the type of football that you are trying to play demands that you have a specific type of a player. For example, if you look at how Chiefs uses the nines, they don't always stay in the box, which is what people want to hear. The strikers of Kaizer Chiefs are asked to drop and play, but then they have to turn quickly. That's why Silva has been looking different than the rest of the strikers that we have, because he has the capability of dropping to combine playing and then quickly make a run into that open space. That is why he is deadly and he can score goals. Maele was going to do that for Chiefs, but they did not get him for Nabi. And that soured the relationship between the two parties. Nabi was not happy, the management was not happy, because they wanted him gone because he didn't finish top 8, despite the fact that even though he hadn't finished in the top 8, he had won them a cup, which 8 coaches before him failed to win. They wanted him gone, and the next thing, they made up things. After he lost to Sekhukhune, they knew that was the best time to get rid of him. They knew, because one thing that they had on their side was this narrative that was being pushed by the fans, that was being pushed by the media, that the technical team does better when Nabi was not around. Except the fact that Nabi was the one who had given them instructions of what to do in a match. Ukaze is always wearing an earpiece because he's also communicating with the analysts who are up there. So all it would have taken for Nabi is for him to stay on a Zoom call while the match is going on, while he's watching the match on TV. And one word to the analyst, hey, tell Kaze that they need to make a change. Boom, you see changes being made. But one thing that tells me and that proves that Nabi was in charge even when he was away from Chiefs is the fact that if you've noticed something, since Nabi officially, or rather, since Nabi was suspended, we saw that the time it took before the subs were made started to be even longer. Right? Chiefs usually make a sub around the 60th minute, most teams do. But Abokaze, they've been forced in the past 2 games to make subs by fans after 70th minute. And I'm not saying changes should always be made. Sometimes you don't need to make changes because things are going well. But even when things were not going well against Stellenbosch and we needed a change, they did not make changes until they were forced by fans. So this tells me that fans were pushing a narrative, a wrong narrative about Nabi. The media about Thomas Mlambo were pushing a wrong narrative about Nabi. The management took that opportunity that, okay, he just lost to Sekhukhune, he drew with Sundowns. We're going to say since he came back, he won 1, he drew 1, he lost 1, which is very not a smart thing to do, because think about it. Who did Chiefs lose to? Sekhukhune were on top of the league at the time. Who did Chiefs draw with? Mamelodi Sundowns, the defending champions, the people who are currently top of the league. So you're going to judge a coach by the fact that he's lost 1 game and drew 1 game against the people on top of the league and the people who are defending the championship. Makes no sense. But that was their opportunity. They saw it and they took it. You have to admire it, because at the time, fans were not happy with Nabi. Uguti, you just lost 3-1. So they were like, there is no time like today. That is why when people say, oh, it's only Jessica who does a job, Abo Junior, they don't. No. I know Ugutu Jessica is the one who's doing the most of the work, but is also the one who's the smartest among all of them, and is one who's in the board. And she has a say on what happens, on which coach gets hired, because she will also throw in an opinion. Because remember, It's the brand, as she always says. So if any coach is going to come in and clash with what the brand stands for, even if he's coming in and his philosophy and his style of play is good for Chiefs, if it doesn't suit the brand, he's not going to come to Chiefs. So Jessica was there. She was part of the decision making to say, let's suspend Nabi based on the reasoning that his credentials are not valid. And as the report told us, then they saw that there was a lie. Mazola reported that, and then Umtotube reported that. They realized, we were wrong. But they knew they were wrong, because they wouldn't have hired Nabi if they hadn't checked his papers. So before they suspended him for papers not being in order, they knew very well that his papers are in order. But they were already in a situation that was not good with Nabi, and they needed an excuse to get rid of him. And got rid of him they did. Now they suspended him, and then they unsuspended him. And then Nabi was like, nah, I'm going to leave. There's too much disrespect going on around here. So they continued negotiating for the past 2-3 weeks. They've been negotiating, and now they've come into an agreement that Nabi had to go, which not Nabi had to go, but how much they were going to pay him. Now they have appointed his former assistants to take over, but the issue that I have with Khalil and Kaizer is that no one between them has been given the reins as the head coach. The importance of having a head coach is, even if they give it to Khalil, even if they give it to Kaizer, I don't care. But I need there to be a clear leader. We know this is the coach, he has the final say, and that's it. What we saw against Stellenbosch was nonsense. Mzuki is making a decision to bring on a goalkeeper coach. And since none of them are head coaches, they just have to say, okay, we agree because that's your assessment, you're the goalkeeper coach. If there is a head coach, under Nabi, we didn't see the nonsense that we saw against Stellenbosch. Ele shouting at those coaches, Marco shouted at those coaches, and then you have you have the goalkeeper refusing, you have Umteto refusing, Umteto eventually goes out, the keeper doesn't go out. They don't respect them. The players don't respect those coaches. And those are the people that you have appointed to lead the biggest team in South Africa. But you are going to have to do that, because if you make them or let them go right now, it doesn't make financial sense, as Kaizer Chiefs usually say. So they have to keep them until the end of the season, which again makes 0 sense. Because if your plan is to let go of the coaches, why keep them now? Because then that means 2026-2027 season will be starting afresh with a new coach. We have AFCON coming up, which means there's a break. We know that not like it's Ntwari and probably Mduduzi Shabalala who will be away from Kaizer Chiefs on international shoot. The rest will be there. Why not leave those players with a coach to cook them during the AFCON and play friendlies with other teams? Because again, a lot of teams won't have a lot of players playing in the AFCON. If they have them, it will be like 3 or 4 or 2 or 3. So why not bring in a new coach right now to have this as a preseason, and by the time we come back in Feb, the team is ready? But they did not do that because they have to consider the financial implications of this whole thing. And now they are screwed. Which also means now, if these guys don't do well enough to be appointed as permanent coaches next season, the next coach that they hire, they will now have to take precaution, right? Because they won't want to hire a coach with his technical team, because they know that if they hire him with his technical team, it will be difficult for them to fire everyone at once should they decide to do that. I would have said I'm disappointed, but it's Chiefs and they've been doing this nonsense for a long time. So I'm just going to say normal day at the office. But what do you guys think about this? Do let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember, equals alphelo moya.